Hello, this video is a companion piece, a kind of sister video to another one that I've knocked out, taking a extract from A Christmas Carol and analysing a language technique in it. Now in this video what I'm going to do is take a structural technique, because you know how snotty that Edexcel examiner can be. He insists that you analyse both language and structure or it gravely affects your mark. So let's get busy. If you want to know about deconstructing the question, have a look at my other video which can launch straight into the action now. You'll notice I've got my daughter's lovely storybook paper here, so I can plan like a good one here and then turn it into a sweet posh paragraph underneath. What will those eggheads think of next? Okay, let's get busy then. So the quotation and the extract that this question relates to is in stage 4. It just describes this nasty rough hole part of London where the servants go to sell off stuff they've nicked from Scrooge's corpse. Of course you see his death in stage 4, don't you? So the quotation that we're going to play with today is this beast. Let's get it down in its entirety. Boom. So that is the Godzilla-sized sentence that we're going to pull our structural technique from. Alleyways and archways, like so many cesspools, disgorge their offensive smell and dirt and life upon the straggling streets. Right. Well, the structural technique we're going to play with here is a long, complex sentence. I think we can link that to the question, which is, of course, about the atmosphere of the area. So we've got a long, complex sentence. Very big on those in the Victorian era, and Charles Dickens was no exception. Right, so let's start interpreting this now, because of course, yes, I get a hug and a cookie from the examiner from citing the technique they've identified, but now I have to explain what kind of atmosphere it's creating. I think what it's doing here, we've got this kind of long sentence that's capturing maybe the length of these winding alleys. Fair enough, Mr. Taylor. I'm not sure that's addressing atmosphere yet. Maybe not. Hopefully that'll become clear in a second. So long, emphasise long complex sentence, emphasising the length of the alleyways. Long alley. But what it's also doing is just highlighting and revealing all these grim details. So it's a long alley with many unpalatable or unpleasant sights, unpleasant scenes along the way. Okay, that's not too shabby at all. But I reckon we can pull out, when we've got our A game interpretation done, I reckon we can pull out a second interpretation. The examiner loves it when you look at what he calls the interrelationship between techniques. So we've got a long complex sentence here, that's a structural technique. Here we've got a similar, which is a language technique. So I think as a secondary thing we might have a route around and a nose at that image too. That'll be our B game, like a secondary or deeper interpretation. Cesspool is basically a puddle of poop. So if this alleyway is dotted with puddles of poop, it's just highlighting what a disgusting, grim area it is. So it's reinforcing this sense of an unpleasant area. That's the atmosphere being created. Lovely. Okay, next step, let's start turning it into a paragraph. Now, got my stopwatch here. I'm not going to bore you with my life story, but in about 10 minutes I'm sitting down to watch Yuletide horror classic Black Christmas. I tell this not only to emphasise my superior cinematic tastes, but also to get across the idea that, like you, I'm under time stress here, like you've been in the exam. So I've got 5 minutes to knock out a paragraph. I think that's pretty good going for an exam. You plan and annotate for about 10 minutes based on the extracts in the question, 20 minutes, 5 minutes per paragraph. We don't have to be a mathematical genius, don't have to be Alan Turing, do you? That gives you about 4 paragraphs to produce. I'm just producing one now in 5 minutes based on this plan. Let's get busy. In the passage, I could call it an extract, that's what the question calls it. I could also call it a section or an excerpt, if you know how to spell that. Passage do for me. In the passage, Dickens employs long, complex sentences to create the atmosphere of the area. So you notice I'm stitching in plenty of those keywords from the question to ensure I'm task focused for this point. Good. Next step, let's get the evidence in. Well, hang on a minute. That is one Godzilla size quotation. You talk that in, you're just going to look like an idiot who's filling space. Try and hack it down, Mr. Taylor, to under 15 words. What can I cut out? Disclose references. Right, let's ditch that for now and replace that with ellipsis. Let's get that in. He describes, just 2 words of my own to launch the quotation. It's called embedding the quotation. The examiner likes that for some reason. I think it creates fluency. He describes alleyways and archways. Make sure you really strive for neat handwriting here, because the examiner can be quite an unforgiving fella when it comes to that. Put yourself in his position. He's marking thousands of these things off his head with sleep deprivation, cheap caffeine. If you irritate him with shonky handwriting, I guarantee he will make you pay for that. Help him to help you. Keep it neat or neatish. Okay, so we've cut that quotation down, haven't we? Courtesy of our friend ellipsis. Now let's get on to the explanation. The use of this structural technique, because of course complex sentences are structural. I could have just said this compellingly conveys, but I'll start with this. The use of this structural technique, just to hammer home that I am using structure as well as language in my response. A bit ace of that full stop, Mr. Taylor. Compellingly conveys to the reader. As you know, he's a bit of a fuss pot. Is the examiner about tonking that word "the reader" in? That's why I've got it in here. Conveys to the reader the sense of a long winding alley with many unpleasant sights and smells. I think I'll go with scenes. Sights and smells. Sights and smells to behold. Now I might have to break my cardinal rule about handwriting here to squeeze everything in. Unless I can rustle up some sort of patch job. Let's see what I can do. So, get it in the picture, you noddy Mr. Taylor. Don't make the good people seasick. There we are. Come on, stop belling about. Lovely. Okay. Moreover, the simile, do you remember in our plan we looked at our B-list response, our secondary response, to show that interrelationship between techniques that the examiner admires. Moreover, the simile, like so many cesspools, remember a cesspool is a puddle of poop. What am I going to do here? Aha! Mr. Taylor, sometimes you're so clever it's frightening. I get a little shiver down my spine. Ugh. The simile, like so many cesspools, reinforces, like it's backing up the idea of, I want to link it back to the question, so we need to talk about the atmosphere, of the areas. Area, of course, was the question as well. The area's unpleasant atmosphere. Yeah, you knucklehead. And presto changeo, one sweet, sweet paragraph. So, just to clarify what I've done then. I've taken a question, turned it into a plan, and then woven that plan into lucid, articulate, insightful sentences. Just a very quick Billy whiz through with a highlighter now, just to earmark the good stuff. Dickens, which was in the question, wasn't it? I've cited a technique, in this case structure, and there's those keywords from the question. I've embedded my evidence, and thanks to our friend Ellipsis, we've hacked it down to respectable size. Doesn't hurt to remind the guy that we're dealing with structure here. I've mentioned the reader, which is a little obsession of the Edexcel examiner, and then I've said what the effect is. It talks about the many unpleasant sights, and it was quite a long sentence and a long alleyway. Then I've used moreover to launch that secondary technique explanation. The technique is simile, and the explanation, it reinforces the idea of the area's unpleasant atmosphere. Right, so you plan it like a champ, you write it like a champ, and you too will be running up that hill with no problems. That took me, well, about 5 minutes, because I've been honking on for another 2 in between, but that's not too shabby, Mr. Taylor. You can go and watch your cheesy 70s horror film with my blessings ringing in your earlobes. That's how you do it, lads.